In the late 1800s and early 1900s, Japan's art had entered into the pre-war period, which saw Japan taking more influence from Western culture. Meanwhile, in Europe and America, the decadent movement took root. This combination of ideas and cultures is most likely what led to Japanese folklore and fairy tales to be published in English for Westerners to enjoy. These works from Japan fit perfectly into the decadent movement as people began to move away from what had become the unspoken rules of their literature and art by adopting these ideas and fables from Japan. The Goblin Spider was translated to English by Lafcadio Hearn and illustrated by Suzuki Kaisen, and published in Tokyo by T. Hasegawa in 1899. It tells of a samurai who decided to spend the night in a temple that is haunted by goblins. The priest of this temple lures him into a false sense of security before revealing himself as a goblin spider himself. The samurai nearly gets captured by the creature but manages to chase the goblin into a hole and kill it. Yamada no Orochi was published in Tokyo 1886 by the Komusha Publishing Company. It was translated into English by B. H. Chamberlain and illustrated by Sensei Itaku. The story tells of the god of storm Susanoo and his quest to slay the eight-headed serpent who was about to take the last daughter of an elderly couple. He makes a deal with the elderly couple that if he manages to slay the serpent, their daughter must marry him. Ultimately, Susanoo slays the serpent after intoxicating all eight heads with sake.
Hanasaki Jiji was the second Japanese fairy tale in the series. The date was 1885 by artist David Thompson and Sensei Itaku. Materials used were ink. The story is about an old man who lived in a remote mountain village. One day the man came across a crying puppy and adopted him. The dog led the man up a hill where gold was pouring out from the ground. The greedy neighbor appeared asking for gold and killed the puppy. The old man and his wife later spread the dog's ashes outside, and a cherry tree immediately blossomed. The king of the village then threw the greedy man in prison. The Mouse's Wedding dates 1890 to 1903. This Japanese folktale legend is about a wealthy mouse family. The mother and father mouse had one daughter and were searching for her husband. The mother and father mouse searched all over the sun and sky to find their daughter's husband. At the end of the story, the mother and father mouse decided their daughter should marry the mouse that lives next door.
The Cub's Triumph. Once upon a time, in a forest, lived a badger, a mother fox, and a little cub. It was only those three animals left in the forest, for all the others had been killed by the hunters. The animals were starving as they were too frightened to leave their home. The badger came up with a plan to play dead and the fox dress as human and pretend to sell him for money to buy food and bring it back to the forest. The badger soon ran away back to the forest and the three ate their meal. It was now the fox's turn to play dead. The badger is greedy and selfish and told the buyer that she only pretended. The man killed her. The cub, being smart and clever, decided to play a game with the fox. They both decided to dress as men and find the other. Only the badger did this, as the fox hid behind the tree. The badger was caught by a group of men and killed. The Wonderful Tea Kettle. Once there was an old priest who was fond of the ceremonial preparing and drinking of tea called chinoyu. One day the priest was walking and discovered a tea kettle in a second-hand shop. He bought the kettle and brought it home. The priest soon fell asleep and the kettle transformed into a badger-like creature. The other priests in the room noticed this and were intrigued by this transformation. They woke the other priest. That night he put the kettle on to boil. The kettle cried out. Frightened, the priest sold it to an old tinker. The tinker fell asleep and the kettle came to life. Frightened, it told the tinker that its name is Bumbuku Chagama and that it brings good luck to anyone who treats it well. The tinker decided to show the kettle and travel. Through this, he became a wealthy man and decided to retire. The kettle was brought back to the temple to be worshipped as a saint.
In Oroshima, a character Toro, a fisherman, saves a turtle that was being tortured by kids and releases it back into the sea. While fishing, a large turtle tells him that he has saved the princess of the sea and gives him gills as a reward to take him to the Dragon Palace and meet the princess and emperor. Taro stays for 3 days in the sea until he was very homesick and wanted to see his parents. Although the princess did not want him to leave, but instead gives him a box that would protect him, but told him not to open it. In the end, in curiosity, he opens a box and becomes an old man, having 300 years pass on land while he spent 3 days in the ocean. Momotaro is a character that came from a peach as a young boy. When he grew up and became strong, he wanted to drive out the Oni from Onigashima Island. Oni are known as scary creatures with characteristics of a human body with thick red skin, strong claws, horns, sharp teeth, and carry an iron club. On the way to drive out the Oni, Momotaro met a dog who questioned the boy about where he was going and what he had with him. In the end, the dog went with him. The same encounter happened with a monkey. Momotaro then had made it to the island where he drove out the Oni and took back all the stolen goods and returned them to the villagers.